puedo vivir, amor, sin ti. Ya no seré feliz. Por ti te estaré esperando para que mis sueños se hagan realidad. Las notas derraman un dolor de amor cantando esta triste canción. Espera la dulce llegada de este corazón que me hace sufrir. Yo no sé cómo.
Hey, good morning. Stevie the Guide here on the banks of the Guadalupe River in Kerrville, Texas. Good morning to you. That is the music of the music team down in Colombia, where I've gone a couple of times now on these 12-day healing retreats. And they bring all these amazing people together for these events. It happen twice or three times a year. They're natural healing events, and they bring together, among other things, they bring together not only natural healers, but musicians, these beautiful musicians from all over Colombia. And this was an example of what you hear down there. They're just amazing. And so I was feeling a little South American today, and I feel relatively certain that their music is not some copyright issue with YouTube. And I don't want to get in trouble with YouTube anymore. Yesterday, I put on some Steely Dan. I don't mean to infringe on anyone's copyright. I just intuitively put on music, that feels right for the moment. As you know, if you've been watching this live stream of mine, that I bounce out of bed sometimes minutes before I turn this on, and I pick out a few some quotes and a little music, and I think up something to say, and off I go. And but YouTube will take down your videos if there's some kind of copyright infringement. They have these little spiders that run around in YouTube, and they not only look for visual things, but they look for audio things like music. And the music producers, I guess, pay YouTube, or the copyright software is able to identify who's playing someone else's music, and then they take your video down. And I've had that happen now several times, and it's quite frustrating when you do an hour-long show and then it disappears. Now, I will say that this goes into a restream broadcast, and you can see my live streams. Supposedly, you can see them. I know you can see them on Facebook and Twitter, but you're also supposed to see them on LinkedIn, which I haven't been able to find them on LinkedIn. And so if you miss it on YouTube, if you don't see me on YouTube, or you're notified that it's been blocked, then you might be able to find it on one of the other venues. Anyway, I don't mean to infringe on anyone's copyright. I'm going to try better not to do that anymore. I wish there was a way that I could get the songs that I like, the classic tunes. I know I got blocked when I played Get Back with the Beatles, because I love that tune, but they pounced on me instantly when I used that one. And sometimes it takes a little longer for them to block you. Anyway, it's been an education of all kinds doing this live stream, and one of those is don't infringe on the copyrights. And so I used some South American music today, which I feel pretty safe about, and I'll try to figure out that problem as I go along. But anyway, good morning, and hope you're having a great one. I'm just having some coffee like every day. Before I go to work, I wanted to talk to you and, pour something out authentically, and, because I love you. It's unfiltered, live stream, and I give it to you straight. I don't prepare much. I just tell you whatever's coming onto my heart in each and every day. And today I looked at a picture. Good morning to you people, by the way. Whoever you are talking to me, let's see. Is that Draper? Yeah, copyright. Yeah. Anyway, good morning. These, the comments on the side are hard for me to see, and it breaks my train of thought. I don't mean not to acknowledge you. You know, I'm grateful that you're here. It's just hard for me to read and respond at the same time. Anyway, I came across this picture. I've been moving to Kerrville and bringing some boxes up from Houston, and I was opening one of the boxes and I came across this photograph. And you have no idea what this photograph means to me. This is a picture of me, a young Stevie, with Jean-Michel Cousteau, and that's Jacques Cousteau's son. And I was at the 1994 DEMA convention in New Orleans. And DEMA is the Diver Equipment Manufacturers Convention. And it's a 5-day bonanza of every kind of scuba diving toy you can think of. And the way I got there, it was a long, arduous, uncertain road to get to that moment, standing there at the convention with Jean-Michel Cousteau. And when I was there, little did I know that just in a few hours I would get the breakthrough of a lifetime, something that I had dreamed about. And in fact, it was beyond my wildest dreams what happened at that convention. And I was about to go on a Jacques Cousteau adventure of the highest order for over a year. I got a job on a sailboat in the Galapagos Islands, actually with a company that had 9 luxury tourist yachts in the Galapagos Islands. And for over a year, I got to guide tours and go and see things that most human beings have never, ever even imagined exist on this planet. And but how did I get there? And that's kind of the upshot of what I want to talk about today. Is I had a dream back in as far back as 1991 or 2. I had this dream, and I've said this before, and I'll recap briefly. But in 1989, I went to a Tony Robbins convention, and I had a vision through one of Tony's exercises. And Tony, I mean, whatever they pay that guy, he's worth it. You know, if you ever have a chance to study with Tony Robbins, go to one of his seminars, my advice is to go, because it's amazing. And I had a vision there in Maui, Hawaii in 1989 about living on a tropical island. And after I came away from there, I did not do that. I did not pursue that. But it was a beautiful, clear, emotional picture that I had in my mind of living on a tropical island and, going out with a little island girl and living in a little bungalow on the beach with the jungle in the background and the ocean in the front, and ultimately guiding tourists on a boat on great adventures in the ocean. And I had this vision in 1989, and I did not really pursue that. I was later, I was married for a couple of years and then divorced. I basically gave my ex-wife, Leslie, everything that we had and walked away flat broke, all right? And I mean flat broke. And I got a job in Austin as a cook, and I was so poor at the time that I didn't have any money to even move my stuff from our little farm in Liberty Hill back down to Austin. And I rented this little place right on Lake Austin. It was the coolest little place right on the lake, and it's amazing how I got that. There I was laying on a pallet in the room. You know, it was basically a one-room efficiency apartment, and it was like a little hobbit hole on the lake. And I made a pallet on the floor, and I was laying there, and I woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning and just bounced out of bed, and I realized that vision was now possible. This was 1993, and I'd had the vision in 1989 to live on a tropical island. All right. My dreams mostly, folks, were not about how can I amass great wealth? How can I make lots of money? A lot of people dream about that. You know, I dream about it a little bit more these days, but mostly my dreams have been about adventure, and that's the way they come to me. All right. Ever since I was a little boy, I explored the woods behind my parents' house. I dreamed about the world and learning about the people of this planet, learning about oceans and jungles and mountains, and I had to see it all. You know, I was a fan of Johnny Quest and Jacques Cousteau, the undersea world of Jacques Cousteau. I was a huge fan, and to meet his son at the DEMA convention later was a big deal for me. So there I was in my little hovel there in Austin, and I had this epiphany that now that I didn't have much money, but I was free to carry out this vision of living on a tropical island. So I followed this breadcrumb trail. I got a book on Honduras and Costa Rica, and then I went to visit a travel agent to get some brochures so I could put a little vision board on the wall, and that's a great thing to do if you're trying to achieve something. To create a little board, a little corner of your office or your home that you can look at every day that has a vision of what you want. And I started putting pictures of tropical islands, beaches, sailboats, scuba diving, you know, all that stuff. And so I'd gone by this travel agent to get some brochures for the pictures, and I talked to a lady who led me to a guy in Austin who was a judge who had a house in Roatan, Honduras, who connected me with a lady at Anthony's Key Resort who told me, look, if you had a scuba diver instructor's license, you could live on any tropical island just about in the whole world, because they don't have those kind of courses there for local people. And so slow down, go get a dive instructor's license, and then, you know, and first aid, get first aid certification. And so I did all that, and it was a whole year. This was 1992, because it was really a whole year. 1992 and 1993. I spent, well, at least a year scrimping and saving and selling off furniture to get these classes as a scuba diver instructor. And I would go to work. All I did for that year, just about, was go to work and go to dive classes. That's it, you know. And I'd save a little money, and I'd go get another class. And I'd save a little money, and I'd go get a piece of equipment. You know, I'd go get a snorkel, or a regulator, or a mask, or a wetsuit, all that stuff. I collected scuba diving equipment. I had this vision that I was going to live on a tropical island, and so I began to put on the mindset that was going to happen. And I worked as a cook at a health club, and I also eventually I started leasing property in Austin, Texas in 1992. The real estate market had crashed completely, and nobody was buying or selling anything. You couldn't give Austin, Texas away to save your life. You couldn't give it away. Nobody wanted to buy Austin. All right. And nowadays, it's just like, it's worth, a million times more than it used to be. But back then, it was in the Great Depression in Austin almost. And so I had to lease property, and at nighttime I had a little make-ready crew. We'd go into these apartments and rip out the carpet and paint the place and clean it all up, and in the daytime I was leasing property, and I was cooking at the health club, and I was going to dive classes. And that's about all I did that whole year and a half, because I had this vision of living on a tropical island. And finally I finished up these classes, and I become friends with my dive instructors, who is the immortal Ralph Erickson, who is the founder of PADI, the Professional Association of Dive Instructors. Ralph, God bless you and rest your soul. Ralph was 73 years old when I met him. He had a 40-year-old wife named Karen and a 3-year-old baby girl. All right, that was Ralph Erickson. He taught dive classes, and they ran this dive institute in Austin. And Ralph was my personal instructor and mentor. And Ralph, I honor you, brother. He is my shining example about what I want to be like when I'm 73 or 75 years old. I mean, what a guy. And because he set up his life around his vision of diving and ocean and physical exercise. And whether you're in the mountains or whether you're in the near the water or wherever you are, to be active and to be actively pursuing a profession for which you have tremendous passion. That's where it's at. That's where the rich people are. Ralph Erickson didn't make tremendous amounts of money, but he was one of the richest guys I ever knew. And at 73 years old, he had a 40-year-old wife and a 3-year-old baby girl. And he used to roll around on the living room floor and giggle with them when we finished our dive classes. And he was great. Anyway, I had the rare privilege of studying under Ralph Erickson. And Ralph told me, as we got closer to my being certified as a dive instructor, that I should come to this convention with them. It was going to be just after I was going through all that in 1993. And in 1994, in January of that year, there was this DEMA convention, the Diver Equipment Manufacturers Convention. And so, I thought about that, and I had to go through 2 days of diver certification testing. In order to be a dive instructor, you got to take a 2-day test. And the first day is in the classroom, and you do these endurance things in the swimming pool. And then the second day, you go out to this flooded quarry over by Huntsville, Texas, and they put you into this flooded quarry, but they put tinfoil in your mask, and you're blinded, and you have to go through a blind test, which I've talked about before. It's a metaphor for how we have to go through life sometimes. We have to feel our way and not panic. The purpose of that exercise, when they blind you by putting tinfoil in your dive mask, and then make you go scuba diving. And they have instructors down in there who mess with you. They turn off your air, they flood your mask, or they loosen your tank where it starts to fall out. And what they want to see is, are you going to panic? Are you going to panic in this blind exercise? And you have to calmly breathe and correct the problem, deal with the issue, and then move on. It's kind of like life. Anyway, so I go through all this, and I go to this convention, and I had just gotten certified as a scuba diving instructor and first aid instructor, and I go to the DEMA convention, and the first day I was there, I walk in and I meet this man. This is Jean-Michel Cousteau, Jacques Cousteau's son, all right? And I mean, that was a big deal for me, man. I had been a huge fan of the undersea world of Jacques Cousteau and this guy's father, and he had been a part of it all. He was on the show, him and his brother Philippe, and they were the Cousteau Society, and it was huge. And the inventor, his dad was the inventor of the aqualung, and created scuba diving, pretty much. And there were some that dispute that, but I mean, he was in the beginning of it all, and that was just a thrill for me. And little did I know when I met him, and the upshot of what I want to talk to today is that after all that shit I went through, all that stuff I went through, I got to go to that convention, and I got a job. After dreaming and visioning from 1989 to 1994 about living on a tropical island. After going through all that stuff, with making the money and selling off furniture, trying to get all those classes and taking that breadcrumb trail, following the vision that I intuitively knew, and reaching that point at that convention, I had a breakthrough. And I believe that's the way it happens. Sometimes a breakthrough can happen quickly. Sometimes it takes a really long time. But breakthroughs are where we want to be. You know, to have a vision about how to break on through to the other side as the doors. I wanted to play that song this morning, break on through to the other side, break on through. But you know, I knew if I put that up that YouTube would take this down, and so I resisted the temptation to infringe on that copyright. Anyway, when you have a vision and you have a dream and you begin to pursue it, and sometimes it's difficult and long, and you don't think anything is going to happen, but at some point, if you continue to walk toward the direction of your dreams, like Henry David Thoreau says, you walk boldly in the direction of your dreams, things happen. They talk about this in the classic tale of the hero's journey. If you look at that little YouTube video called Finding Joe, it's all about Joseph Campbell and the classic tale of the hero's journey. You beat your head against the wall and you try, and doors are closed and nobody will talk to you. But if you doggedly pursue the vision, because it comes from the intuition, it comes from that right brain intuitive, it is often not logical, and you pursue, at some point a door will open where there was none before. All right, a door opens, a door appears, and it opens for you where there wasn't, and it doesn't open for anybody else. All right, it just opens for you. All right, and that's because you are following this, what I call a vibrational breadcrumb trail. You're following it's all, according to Nikola Tesla, it's all about vibration and frequency. And you feel that you're supposed to go in this direction, no matter what the left brain logical says. You intuitively pursue, and you search, and you go looking, and you try to take little steps every day, which are the joy of your daily life, is taking these little steps to try to get to your vision. And anyway, I did all that, and a door opened, a door leading me to a place that was beyond my wildest dreams. It truly was. It was a Jacques Cousteau dream come true, because here's what happened. My little peanut vision was to live on an island like Cozumel or Cayman, and drink beer and chase girls. That was the extent of my vision, that was, I would do that for a few months, and then that'd be it. I don't know. I really didn't know what the end result of the vision was. I just wanted to get to a tropical island, and and it happens this way a lot. I find is that when you have a vision and you pursue it, generally what happens in the end is much bigger and more elaborate than you can imagine. And what happened to me at that convention was amazing, and it goes down in history, along with that trip I took in the 80s to Southeast Asia. This one here was the one of the 90s, I followed a vision to live on a tropical island. I go into this convention, I meet Jacques Cousteau's son, Jean-Michel, but I go around the convention. It's a huge convention hall there in New Orleans, if you've ever been to the New Orleans Convention Center. And I go wandering through there, but I confine my activities mostly to around the Caribbean, because that was sort of my general vision. I did not go looking at the whole world is represented in this convention hall. And you've got people from the Indian Ocean and Madagascar and down in Australia and the Great Barrier Reef, and just everywhere. Over in Micronesia and Palau and all that is represented there. My vision was in the Caribbean, so I went, to Cayman Islands companies. And the DEMA convention is not open to the general public. It's a huge convention, but the public is not invited. That's what's so cool about it, is that you have to be in either the dive industry or the travel industry in order to get into this convention. And it's private for the industry. And so because I had just been given a scuba diver instructor license, I could gain entry into this convention. You cannot go if you simply are a recreational diver or a dive master. Have to be an instructor. And so I thought that was like really cool. And so I go wandering around to all the different resorts that are represented there, the resorts and the different dive ship companies that are represented in the Caribbean. I did that for about 3 days, and I did not find a job. I met a lot of nice people, and I made up these little cards that, hey, I was a dive professional and I wanted a job, and I wanted to come live on your tropical island, and that's what I wanted to do. And there were a lot of nice people, but nobody said, hey, we'll give you a job. Come on down. You got a job. Nobody said that. And so after about 3 days, I was getting kind of discouraged, and I decided to begin to wander around the other parts of this convention hall in New Orleans. And I went to visit, people who had tourist and dive operations. And I remember Mauritius, the island of Mauritius and La Reunion. Those are down in the Indian Ocean. I visited the Seychelles Islands. I visited people who work down on the Great Barrier Reef and some of those dive operations. I visited the Aggressor Fleet, which is a cool-ass dive ship fleet. And if you ever want to go on a really first-class dive tour, go check out the Aggressor Fleet because they're all over the world. They got boats everywhere, and they do a really fine job. They're real expensive, but it's about as cool as it gets. And I wanted a job with the Aggressors, and so I didn't get one, but I stumbled upon this couple, this South American Ecuadorian couple, and Eduardo and Dolores. I'll never forget them. And they had a company in the Galapagos Islands that had 9 tourist yachts. And they said, what do you know about the Galapagos Islands? And I didn't know anything about it, really, nothing. I mean, I had a vague memory that Charles Darwin had done something there one time with the turtles, or something. And that's about all I knew. I didn't even quite know where the Galapagos Islands was, all right? And they said, yeah, we need somebody. You seem like a nice guy, and you speak some Spanish, and we need a dive instructor type guy. And, would you consider that? And I was like, well, maybe. I didn't know what they were asking me because I didn't know what the Galapagos Islands was, all right? And they said, why don't you go and see this little video on the Galapagos. The Aggressor Fleet is having a breakout session here at the convention. Go see the little video and then come back and see that, okay, and talk to us. And when I came back from that video, I mean, my jaw was hanging open. I did not realize that the Galapagos Islands, being at the intersection of 2 or 3 major ocean currents, is the home of the largest marine life, arguably the largest collection of giant marine life in the world. The largest manta rays, the largest sharks, the largest schools of sharks, especially hammerhead sharks, the largest whale sharks, the largest moray eels. I mean, it is a Jacques Cousteau wet dream, and it is someplace that, at least at that time, most people really didn't know about much. I mean, some people had heard of it, but they didn't have, it wasn't a big tourist industry back then. There was some, but mostly the dive community knew about it. And I was like, yeah, I'd like to talk to you guys. And so Eduardo and Dolores and I went out to breakfast one morning, and we made a deal, and we got along together. There was it was a vibrational thing. A door opened, all right, all unexpectedly. A door to a place I could not even imagine, all right, opened for me because I had pursued the breadcrumb trail, all right. I had felt it, and I had dreamed about it, and I had put, visions on the wall that I had looked at for almost 2 years, and I had in 1989. So I had actually been thinking about this vision, for 4 or 5 years, and little by little I had pursued this vision, and then this door opened to a place that I could not imagine. It was beyond my wildest dreams. It was unbelievable. And all of a sudden, I make a deal with them. I go back to Houston, or actually to Austin. I sell my car, store all my stuff, and move to South America. All right. And I was thinking I was going to go to the Caribbean, and now I'm somewhere down in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. I fly to Quito, Ecuador, and they fly me out to the Galapagos Islands and introduce me to all the crews of all the boats, 9 tourist yachts. I'm kind of a host. I put on a coat and tie. I go get the clients up at the airport in Quito, and then I tour them around in the mainland of Ecuador, and then I take them down to the Galapagos Islands, and we, the crew picks us up at the airport, and we get on a ship for anywhere from 1 to 3 weeks. And we go on these dive tours that are just the most mind-blowing thing. And I didn't have to live most of the time like the crew. I got to live like one of the tourists. And they paid me to do this, right? And I got to, most often, I got my own little cabin. And I got to eat every meal with the tourists. I mean, I lived like a king on 9 yachts. I had 9 yachts that were pretty much all my own, at least in my mind. And it was unbelievable. It was absolutely unbelievable. And I pulled up some of these pictures because I took a ton of pictures. And this is what my life in the Galapagos Islands looked like. All right. This was my job. There I am on the front. This was my job, to take tourists out from the ship. That's the Lammerlaw. That's the back of the ship there. And my job was to take people under the ocean to see all this wild marine life. I spent a lot of time doing stuff like this, talking to sea lions, and hanging out in places, watching birds and nesting birds and marine iguanas. There I am talking to a giant turtle. There was a farm up in the highlands where the giant tortoises live, and I got to take people up there. Oh, here's a picture of Stevie being a turtle. There's me being a turtle. And that was at a restaurant where they had this empty turtle shell. And I said, you guys want me to be a turtle? And they were like, oh yeah. And amazing. There was a volcanic eruption that happened there. And I got a picture in the daytime. That's in the daytime. At nighttime, that volcano is on the island of Fernandina. That volcano was shooting lava looked like about a half a mile in the air. There was a bright, giant fountain of fire at nighttime with a fiery river going down to the ocean. And we got in a little boat and moved up close to where that lava was coming down into the ocean. It was amazing. And I got to be with these underwater photographers. That I learned a lot about underwater photography from people like Chris Newbert, and and that was one of the cool things about that job. It's not that I just got to tour around with people on these neat boats, but it was the kind of people that came there, and I was their host. And we didn't go to a hotel at night. We slept on the ship, we ate on the ship, we lived completely on the ship for up to 3 weeks' time. And so I had, wealthy millionaires like the Rockefeller family came. I had scientists and photographers and people who were really interesting to talk to. And there's something special when you're sort of confined on a ship, and people sort of let their hair down. They unwind from that high-strung culture, high-stress culture, and after about 48 hours, they decompress. And you see a rigid businessman now. All of a sudden, he's laying back on the couch, and he doesn't wear shoes for a week. When you take off someone's shoes and you don't give them back for a week or two, people begin to relax, and they tell you things, and they share some of their most intimate thoughts and memories and feelings. And there's something actually beautiful about being far, far away from. You couldn't even call me on the phone. There was no cell phones back then. If I went to, I had an apartment, a little bungalow on the island with my little island girlfriend. And it had no phone there. If you wanted to contact me, it was real, real, real hard. There was a phone at the office on the island, and you had to call and leave a message, probably in Spanish. All right. And if I wanted to call, it was pretty difficult too, because it was kind of a scratchy connection back then. That's how I used to talk to my mom when I lived in China back in 1985, was over this long distance telephone, which sounded like a ship to shore radio. But anyway, I got to do all that, and when I wasn't guiding tours, I was doing stuff like this. That's when we go out and look for lobsters, and those are actually two different kind of lobsters that they have in the Galapagos Islands. And the local guys would take me out on a little skiff, and we'd go fish for lobsters. We'd go spearfishing, and we were constantly barbecuing or making lobster stew. I learned a lot about cooking seafood when I was in the Galapagos Islands, because that's about all we ate. You could buy a lobster dinner for about $2. And you could buy a cheeseburger for about $8, because beef was more expensive. It wasn't really that much, but anyway, and the beef's not very good over there. It's not like here we had corn-fed beef and stuff. So you were constantly eating seafood. Anyway, that's what happened, and that I had a breakthrough. The upshot of that Uncle Remus tale, boys and girls, is that I had a dream. I had a dream, and inch by inch, I pursued that dream, and I didn't have any resources, none, to do that. But at least I thought. I had some nice furniture, and I found out, hey, people want to buy that. I traded big pieces of furniture that I didn't want to move around. I traded those for dive equipment and dive classes that I did want, all right? And that was part of the way it helped me get through that, because it's pretty long, the type of training I had to go through, and then I had to buy all this equipment. And in the Galapagos Islands, I had to have a special wetsuit. It was a 7mm neoprene wetsuit with hoodie and gloves and booties, and you had to have extra weights and all kinds of gear. I mean, I was geared down, baby, geared down. When I went down there, I had 2 trunks full of just dive gear, all right? And then my suitcases, and I had flashlights and knives and spear guns and all kinds of shit. It was fun. Stevie, that was about as comprehensive a preparation for an adventure as I've ever been on. And that adventure went on for actually 3 years. I was in the Galapagos for just over a year, but then on my way home, I went to Honduras, to stay with that guy. If you recall early in the story, there was a judge that had a condo in Honduras, and he told me I could stay there. So I shipped all my stuff home, and I went to Honduras to stay for a week in this guy's condo, and I wound up living there for a year and a half, almost 2 years, and that was a whole nother dive and wild experience. And but my vision of living on a tropical island turned into living in the Galapagos Islands and living in the Bay Islands of Honduras. I mean, I had islands for 3 years. I worked for a guy in the Bay Islands that had a plane. We showed property and from this airplane, and we had a boat, and I had friends who had dive hotels. We could go out for free, so do not discount your dreams. Do not discount your dreams, and the breakthrough that can happen if you pursue them. All right. There's some quotes that I quickly pulled up here this morning, and I'm just going to read them off for you. Some of the famous people of our time. Let's start with Tony Robbins, who that's where I formed that vision. In 1989 on the island of Maui, I went to a 2-week Tony Robbins seminar, and he had us walking on fire and jumping off telephone poles, and in this thing called the perfect day, we envisioned what our perfect day might be like, and it was living on a tropical island for me. And so Tony Robbins says, all personal breakthroughs begin with a change in beliefs. All personal breakthroughs begin with a change in beliefs. And generally, what Tony would probably tell you, it's a change in your beliefs of what you think is possible. And if you can forget all about, and that goes back to what I talk about all the time, is this balance between the left brain logical and the right brain intuitive. The left brain logical will often tell you what the boundaries are. All right, they're going to say that's not logical, that's not practical, that's not reality. That's just a fantasy. All right, that's what the left brain often will tell you. We don't have enough money. We don't have enough resources. We're not good enough. We're not tall enough. We're not strong enough. Whatever. All right, that's not the one you listen to when you're forming a dream and forming a vision. The one you listen to is the right brain intuitive, the small still voice, the inner child, the Christ consciousness. All right, that's what you listen to. And you break, Tony Robbins says, all personal breakthroughs begin with a change in beliefs. And so if you forget about all those things that you believe are possible or practical, and you just begin to roll with what you envision, what you're drawn to, what makes you excited when you think about it. My litmus test for whether it's a true vision or just a passing fancy is over a little bit of time. Every time I think of a thing, if I'm really excited, every time I think about it, and I think, oh God, I'd really love to do that, then it's probably a true vision. It's a true blip on your radar. But if you think about it once or twice and it seems cool, but then it sort of fades, then maybe not. But Tony Robbins says it's a change in your beliefs. And I would agree with that for sure. They say, Tony Evans, the famous pastor, says, brokenness is often the road to breakthrough. Be encouraged. Brokenness is often the road to breakthrough. When something breaks in your life, something gets trashed, something is, and it seems like it's a mess, what it does is it causes a sense of wonder. All right, all of a sudden the snow globe gets shaken up. Nothing is predictable, but what it does, even though it's chaotic, then all of a sudden it's like, hey, anything is possible now. That bridge is burned. That job is gone. That relationship's over. And now it's like, well, what am I going to do now? What am I going to do now? And it is in that questioning that the breakthrough can happen. So be encouraged about that chaos. I've seen that to be true. You see, you have to push through every difficulty to have a breakthrough. Lila Giffy Akita, I can't even pronounce her name. All significant breakthroughs are break withs the old ways of thinking. All right, that's Thomas Kuhn. All significant breakthroughs are break withs. You break with the old way of thinking, just like Tony Robbins says. You're breaking through old belief systems, and oftentimes our belief systems are limiting. They're limiting. We've been told, we've been trained, and we've been placed in a box of what that people think we are capable of. And a breakthrough is a break with that way of thinking. And because you don't know what you're capable of, you don't know, and that's a fact. And you don't know until you try. All right. Write that word down. Try. All right. Because if you keep trying, you keep knocking, keep banging, keep walking forward, amazing stuff can happen. Oh, this is a good one. A breakthrough occurs when you recognize you are more energy than matter. That you're more energy than matter. You're not just a physical body, all right? You're not just the physical, tangible things that you own, all right? You're not your bank account. You are more energy than matter, all right? And so energy being controlled by your mind, by your consciousness, by your higher vibration. The energy, you move around. You want me to give you a demonstration of how you control matter with your mind? All right. Okay, you ready? This is how you control matter with your mind. Watch this. Watch closely. All right. You watching? Okay. I just controlled matter with my mind. All right. You see that? Let me show you again. Now, how does that work? How is it that my mind can make this body move around? All right. How is that? It's the same principle, I believe, with lots of things. And you call me crazy, I'm sure. But I think the way they built those pyramids is with their minds. All right. I believe their higher Christ-like consciousness allowed them to do a lot of things just like Christ did. All right. And I believe that we are far more powerful than we give ourselves credit for. And it is that limiting belief system that keeps us from trying a bunch of amazing things. That limiting belief system keeps us from acting upon. It's that limiting left brain logical belief system that says, I'm not good enough. I'm not strong enough. I can't do it. And so why try? All right. Why try? And going on with my few quotes, this is a bunch of good quotes in here. Breakthroughs in art, culture, and personality come when tackling the unexpected. That's Lydia Obst. Sometimes our breakthrough begins when we refuse to be impressed with the size of our problem. That's a good one. We're not impressed with the size of the problem. All right. We refuse to be impressed. That's when our breakthrough begins. When we don't care how big the problem is. Martin Luther King said, "Don't look at the whole mountain. Just take the first step. All right, and take another and take another, and pretty soon that mountain is conquered. All right, but it's you're unimpressed with how high the mountain is. You're unimpressed with the magnitude of the problem. You just have a vision to solve that problem." And another one and that last one was Bill Johnson. This one, the emotion at the point of technical breakthrough is better than wine, women, and song put together. The emotion, and I'm telling you, it's not just with technical breakthroughs. It's with any breakthrough. You want the best drug on the planet, baby. You break through onto the other side of where you want to be. that place that makes your heart sing, that place that you've dreamed about night after night, day after day, wishing you could be there, trying to figure it out, taking little steps, having all sorts of, obstacles that you've had to overcome, all right? And when you break through, I'm telling you, when I got to that tropical island in the Galapagos Islands, and I woke up one morning in my little bungalow with my little island girlfriend that I had envisioned, and I had a job taking people on this massive sailboat, and it was sitting there in the harbor waiting for me one morning. And I looked out the window, and there it was, the Lammer Law. You can look up, if you look up, Google Lammer Law, you're going to see a two-masted trimaran sailboat. This is the coolest thing I ever saw in my life. It was parked right out in front of my bungalow, and I was about to go on it that day and take a group of tourists on a dive trip, all right? You talk about excitement. There is no better feeling in this world than achieving your dreams, than breaking through to something that's not only what you dreamed about, but it's better. All right, and because it's like Paulo Coelho says in his book, The Alchemist. In The Alchemist, it says, the key line in that whole book, The Alchemist, it says, when you want something, the universe conspires to help you get it. When you want something. And when in the Bible, when they're crossing the Jordan River, they have to take the first step into the Jordan in order to make the flood river part, in order that they cross. Okay, so you have to actually begin to, like Thoreau says, walk confidently in the direction of your dreams, and then you will experience a life uncommon in waking hours. I think that's the way the quote goes. But you have to pursue. You have to first get a vision, and then you have to pursue. In the face of discouragement and naysayers, you have to pursue. And there were people that told me going to Asia was a dream, and going to live on a tropical island was a dream. And I should just get back to work and start making some money so I could buy a mansion. But I wanted to spend my minutes on this planet, learning as much as I could about the whole planet. That's always been my dream. I've always been deeply invested in three characters. Johnny Quest, the cartoon, and Jacques Cousteau, and Marlon Perkins. All right. These three characters. Marlon Perkins was The Wild Kingdom. If you're old enough to remember The Wild Kingdom, I could not wait for Sunday to come so I could see Mutual of Omaha's The Wild Kingdom. That was just the light of my life when I was a little kid. And then Johnny Quest, the cartoon, the kid who ran all around the planet, and they had cool toys. This is where I learned words like scuba diving, aqualung, hydrofoil, jet boat, laser beam, this is what I dreamed about. I did not dream about owning a mansion. I dreamed about traveling the world in my life, and that is exactly what I've done. And it's because I dreamed it. And so I encourage you, as we roll into the 6 o'clock hour, I don't know where the time's gone, but I never do. I get into a flow state. But I encourage you so much to do whatever comes onto your heart. Be a creator of your own experience. Down in the Galapagos Islands on the Lammerlaw ship, a fellow dive guide of mine was Pablo Davila. Pablo, if you're out there somewhere, baby, I love you. Dios te bendiga. Eres mi buen hermano. But Pablo, he heard my last name, and he says, Dyer. Oh, Tinto, that's your name, Tinto. It means he who adds color, all right? And I've always enjoyed that interpretation of my name, he who adds color. But it's a big responsibility. I've got to add beautiful color, all right? And so I do my best here to raise the vibration, to bring out the highest ideals in myself and in others, if anybody's out there listening, which it looks like a few people are out there listening this morning. I don't mean to ignore you guys. Monica, thank you. Crazy. Who are you talking to? Look, I can't read all the comments, but I appreciate you showing up, and I appreciate your encouragement. I do this because I have an ideal. I have a vision. I have a vision of trying to develop, being able to be a speaker and a broadcaster and to create interesting things online. I want to be like my heroes who were, famous public speakers and outdoorsmen and guides and people who motivate and inspire. And hey, I've got to go to my regular job here now, but I'm doing whatever I can. I'm taking little small steps every day, or sometimes I don't do it every day, but I'm doing the best I can to try to be who I want to be. And one day, hopefully, I'll find a breakthrough. And I hope you will too. And so God bless you. I love you. Stevie the Guide here on the banks of the Guadalupe River in Kerrville, Texas. Dios te bendiga. God bless you. I love you. And so I'm going to give it to you straight, authentically, however it comes to me, without filters. I don't care if I look ridiculous, or I don't care if I get it wrong. They say if something's worth doing, it's worth doing badly in the beginning. All right, so go do it. You're not gonna get there by thinking about it. All right, you got to take the little steps every day. So good luck to you, and I wish you well. Have a great day. Bye I love you. I heard Paul McCartney do that one time.
Amor, sin ti, ya no seré feliz.